The medical scanner beeped softly in Dr. Kira Thane's four-fingered hands as she reviewed the human's biological readings for the third time that morning. The numbers made no sense to her Altarian mind. How could any species survive with such basic physiology, no protective scales, no natural armor plating, no redundant organ systems? Yet here was Tom Bradley, scheduled to be the first human to set foot on Theta 7, arguably the most dangerous planet the Galactic Council had ever discovered. "Dr. Thane, you look concerned," her assistant Nix observed, his Veltar head tentacles twitching with curiosity. The blue-skinned researcher had worked with Kira for 5 years, cataloging deathworlds across the galaxy, but they had never encountered anything quite like Theta 7. Kira's golden eyes shifted to the viewport where the jungle planet rotated slowly below them. From orbit, it looked deceptively beautiful. Emerald forests stretched across 3 continents, broken by silver rivers and crystalline mountain ranges. But their 3 months of study had revealed a horrifying truth. Every single life form they had identified possessed some form of deadly toxin. The plants secreted acids that could melt through starship hull plating. The smallest insects carried neurotoxins powerful enough to kill a fully grown Krellian. Even the water contained microscopic organisms that attacked nervous systems within. "Minutes of contact." "I am more than concerned," Kira admitted, her normally steady voice betraying her worry. "The human colonial administration is making a terrible mistake. Their representatives should not be participating in this expedition. Look at these readings." She transferred Tom's medical data to Nix's tablet. The young Veltar studied the information, his tentacles drooping as he absorbed the implications. "His immune system shows no specialized adaptations for toxic environments," Nix said slowly. "No neutralizing enzymes, no redundant filtering organs. Dr. Thane, his liver is a single organ. Single. How do his people survive anything?" Through the laboratory's transparent walls, they could see Tom Bradley in the equipment bay, checking his gear with the methodical precision of a trained professional. He stood about average height for his species, with brown hair and unremarkable features. Nothing about his appearance suggested he was equipped to handle what waited below. "The human homeworld is classified as a standard garden planet," Kira muttered, pulling up Earth's file on her workstation. "Temperate climate, diverse but manageable ecosystem, suitable for colonization by most Galactic Council species. Their own reports describe it as pleasant and hospitable." Then how did they develop space travel? Nix wondered aloud. "Garden? Worlds typically produce peaceful, philosophical civilizations. They rarely develop the drive for aggressive expansion." Before Kira could respond, the laboratory door chimed. Tom Bradley entered, wearing the standard-issue environmental suit that all expedition members were required to use on Theta 7. His face was relaxed, almost cheerful. "Good morning, Doc," he said to Kira with a casual smile. "Just wanted to check if there were any last-minute medical requirements before we head down." Kira's internal translator processed his words, but she still struggled with human idioms. The casual way he addressed her, using the shortened form of her title, would have been insulting among her own people. Yet somehow, coming from Tom, it seemed friendly rather than disrespectful. "Mr. Bradley," she began carefully, "I must express my serious concerns about your participation in this mission. Theta 7's ecosystem is unlike anything your species has encountered. We have documented over 200 different toxins in just the small sample area we plan to visit. Many of them work in ways that your medical files suggest would be instantly fatal to humans." Tom nodded thoughtfully, as if she had commented on the weather. "I appreciate the warning, Doc. We'll all be careful down there." "You do not understand," Kira pressed, her voice rising slightly. "Careful is not sufficient. The margin for error is 0. A single drop of sap from a shimmerleaf plant will cause complete neural shutdown in most species within 30 seconds. The bite of a tunnel moth. Larva introduces a hemotoxin that dissolves blood cells from the inside out. Even the air contains spores that attack respiratory tissue. Sounds pretty nasty, Tom agreed. Good thing we have the environmental suits. Nix leaned forward, his tentacles writhing with agitation. The suits provide basic protection, yes, but they are not perfect. Small tears, equipment failures, momentary seal breaks. All these things happen on dangerous worlds. When they do, most species have biological defenses to fall back on. Altarians like Dr. Thane have redundant filtration systems. My people produce natural antibodies to most known toxins. But humans... Tom waited patiently for him to continue. Humans appear to have no specialized defenses at all, Kira finished quietly. Your medical profile shows standard mammalian biology with no adaptations for hostile environments. One small accident could kill you in ways that would be merely inconvenient to the rest of us. For a moment, Tom's expression grew more serious. Look, I understand your concerns, and I respect your expertise, but Earth wasn't exactly a playground either. We had our share of dangerous critters: snakes, spiders, sharks, bears, poisonous plants, diseases, natural disasters. Humans learned to be careful, to use tools, to work together. We survived. But Theta 7 is exponentially more dangerous, Kira insisted. Every organism we have studied represents a threat level that would require immediate evacuation protocols on most worlds. The concentration of lethal biology is unprecedented. Tom shrugged, a gesture that Kira found both fascinating and frustrating. How could he remain so calm when faced with almost certain death? Well, Tom said finally, I guess we'll find out how well human caution works against alien nasties. The transport leaves in 20 minutes, right? After he left, Kira and Nix sat in troubled silence. Finally, Nix spoke. Should we recommend mission cancellation? Kira considered it. The Galactic Council's protocols were clear about protecting newly discovered species from unnecessarily dangerous situations. But the human colonial government had specifically requested representation on this mission, and Tom Bradley was a trained xenobiological survey specialist. Refusing him might damage the delicate diplomatic relationships that were still developing between humanity and the wider galactic community. No, she decided reluctantly, but prepare emergency medical protocols, full trauma surgery setup, toxin neutralization compounds, neural stabilization equipment. When something goes wrong down there, we will need to be ready to act immediately. As their transport descended through Theta 7's atmosphere 30 minutes later, Kira watched Tom through the passenger compartment's monitor system. He sat calmly, reviewing mission objectives, apparently unconcerned about the fact that he was traveling toward what might be the last few hours of his life. She only hoped her medical equipment would be sufficient to save him when the inevitable happened. The humid air of Theta 7 pressed against Tom Bradley's environmental suit as he stepped off the transport shuttle. Even through the filtered atmosphere system, he could smell something like rotting flowers mixed with ozone. The jungle around. Their landing site pulsed with an alien rhythm, every surface seeming to shimmer with moisture or movement. 3 hours had passed since they established their base camp near the crystalline formations that jutted from the jungle floor like frozen lightning. The structures glowed with a soft blue light that seemed to pulse in harmony with something deep underground. Tom found them beautiful in a dangerous way, like coral reefs back on Earth that looked inviting but hid countless ways to kill the unwary. Nix crouched near one of the smaller crystals, running his scanner over its surface while maintaining a careful distance. The young Veltar had been nervous since landing, his head tentacles twitching at every sound from the surrounding forest. The energy readings are incredible, he called to Dr. Thane. These formations appear to be some kind of biological technology. Living crystal, perhaps. Tom was setting up the atmospheric monitoring station when something caught his eye. A section of undergrowth about 20 meters away rustled in a pattern that did not match the constant movement of Theta 7's wind-blown foliage. He watched carefully, remembering his training. Predators everywhere shared certain characteristics. They moved differently than prey animals, with purpose and patience. "Dr. Thane," he said quietly, not wanting to alarm anyone, "we might have a visitor." The Altarian scientist looked up from her equipment, following Tom's gaze toward the suspicious vegetation. Her golden eyes widened as she spotted what he had seen. Something large was moving through the dense plant growth, approaching there. "Position with deliberate stealth." "Everyone maintain positions," she ordered, her voice tight with controlled fear. "Do not run. Most predators are triggered by sudden movement." The creature that emerged from the jungle looked like someone had crossed a giant python with a lizard and then given it a coat of armor. Its body stretched nearly 3 meters long, covered in scales that looked like polished black metal. Amber, eyes the size of dinner plates, fixed on Tom with unmistakable intelligence. Most disturbing of all were the ridge of spines running down its back, each one dripping with something that hissed when it hit the ground. "Death spine crawler," Nix whispered, his voice barely audible through the comm system. "Oh no, oh no, no, no." Tom had read about these creatures in the mission briefings. The death spine crawler was considered one of Theta 7's most efficient killers. Its venom was a complex cocktail of neurotoxins, hemotoxins, and tissue-dissolving enzymes. One bite could kill a Krellian battle beast in under a minute. The mission files recommended immediate evacuation if one was encountered at close range. The creature coiled itself into a striking position, its massive head swaying slightly as it studied Tom. For reasons he could not explain, it seemed focused, entirely on him while ignoring the other team members. Maybe it recognized him as the most vulnerable target. Animals back on Earth sometimes showed that kind of intelligence. "Tom," Dr. Thane said very slowly, "step backward, very slowly. Do not look directly at it." Tom began to take a careful step back, but his boot caught on a root hidden beneath the alien moss. He stumbled slightly, throwing out his arm to catch his balance. The movement was sudden and unexpected. The death spine crawler struck faster than thought. Tom saw a blur of black scales and amber eyes. He felt the impact as something heavy slammed into his forearm. Then came the pain, sharp and immediate, as fangs longer than his fingers punched through his environmental suit and deep into his flesh. The creature's jaws clamped down with tremendous pressure. Tom could feel the fangs moving deeper, and something hot and acidic flooding into his arm. The death spine crawler hung on for several seconds, making sure to deliver its full payload of venom before releasing him and slithering back a few meters to wait for its poison to take effect. "Emergency protocols now!" Dr. Thane shouted, rushing toward Tom with her medical kit. "Nix, prepare the stabilization compounds. Call the shuttle for immediate evacuation." Tom looked down at his arm. 2 puncture wounds marked where the fangs had penetrated, each about the size of a coin. Dark purple liquid oozed from the holes, mixed with his blood. The environmental suit's biomonitors were already flashing warning lights as they detected the foreign toxins in his system. He could feel something spreading up his arm, a cold sensation that made his skin tingle. The venom was definitely working its way through his bloodstream. According to everything he had read, he should be experiencing the first stages of nervous system shutdown right about now. But instead of collapsing or convulsing, Tom found himself thinking about a camping trip he had taken as a kid in the Australian outback. He had been bitten by a redback spider that time. His father had calmly driven him to the hospital while explaining that spider bites looked worse than they usually were. "Pain is just your body telling you to pay attention," his dad had said. "Listen to it, but don't panic." The memory made him smile slightly as he examined the bite marks. Yeah, this definitely hurt more than a redback spider. The venom burned as it moved through his system, and his arm was starting to swell. But panic seemed like a waste of energy right now. "Well," he said to Dr. Thane as she frantically unpacked her medical equipment, "that stings a bit." The Altarian scientist froze, staring at him in disbelief. "Tom, you need to lie down immediately. The neural disruption should be starting any moment now." "I feel okay," Tom said honestly. "Sore, but okay." He continued setting up the atmospheric monitoring station with his good arm, figuring he might as well be useful while the medical team worked. Nix was running full medical scans on Tom, his tentacles writhing in agitation as he read the results. "Dr. Thane, this is impossible. The toxin levels in his blood should have caused complete respiratory failure by now. But his vital signs are stable. More than stable. His white blood cell count is increasing rapidly." The death spine crawler watched from its position near the tree line, clearly puzzled by the lack of immediate collapse. It had never encountered prey that remained standing after receiving a full dose of its venom. Tom noticed the creature's confusion and felt almost sorry for it. Back on Earth, he had learned that most predators were just trying to make a living same as everyone else. This one had probably never failed to kill something before. "Don't take it personally, buddy," he told the death spine crawler. "Humans are weird." Dr. Thane was staring at her medical readings as if they had malfunctioned. The human was not just alive. He was showing signs of actively fighting off the most potent biotoxin she had ever encountered, and he was smiling about it. 6 hours after the death spine crawler bite, Tom Bradley was helping Nix catalog plant samples while Dr. Thane ran her 15th medical scan of the day. The Altarian scientist had moved far beyond simple confusion into what her species would call cognitive displacement. Everything she understood about biology was being challenged by the human who should have died before lunch. "Tom, please hold still," she said for the 4th time, trying to get a clear reading of his immune system activity. "These results are unprecedented." Tom paused in his examination of a flowering vine that seemed to be watching them. The plant's petals tracked their movements like tiny satellite dishes, and he was pretty sure the pollen it released had tried to eat through his gloves twice already. "Sure thing, Doc. Though I feel fine, if that helps." That was exactly the problem. Tom's blood showed massive concentrations of the death spine crawler's venom, enough to kill 3 adult Krellians. But instead of attacking his nervous system, something remarkable was happening. His immune system was not just fighting the toxin, it was learning from it. "Nix," Dr. Thane called to her assistant, "look at these antibody formations. Have you ever seen anything like this?" The Veltar scientist reviewed the data on his portable scanner, his head tentacles curling with amazement. "The proteins are adapting in real time. It is as if his immune system is reverse engineering the venom and creating specific countermeasures. But this level of biological adaptation should take generations, not hours." Tom looked genuinely interested. "Really? That's pretty cool. I mean, I figured my system would handle it somehow. Back home, we had saying about what doesn't kill you making you stronger." Dr. Thane's translator struggled with the human idiom, but the medical implications were staggering. "Tom, you must understand. This is not normal immune response. This is something we have never documented in any species. Your body is treating a lethal biotoxin like a learning exercise." Tom considered this while testing the strength of a branch that looked suspiciously like it wanted to grab him. "Maybe it's an Earth thing. We had a lot of nasty stuff back home. Snakes, spiders, jellyfish, plants that could blind you just by touching them. Probably built up some resistance over time." The casual way he mentioned these dangers made both alien scientists exchange worried glances. Dr. Thane pulled up Earth's classification file again, reading it with new eyes. "Garden. World. Suitable for colonization, temperate and pleasant." Clearly, whoever had written that report had never actually visited the place. "Tom," she said carefully, "when you say Earth had dangerous creatures, could you be more specific?" "Oh, standard stuff." Tom was examining what looked like a moss that was trying to dissolve his boots. "Rattlesnakes, black mambas, Blue-ringed octopus, box jellyfish, cone snails, poison dart frogs, funnel web spiders, taipans, death adders, stonefish, plus all the plants, poison oak, poison ivy, manchineel trees, castor beans, oleander. He rattled off the list like he was reciting items from a grocery store, apparently unaware that each creature he named would be classified as a biological weapon by Galactic Council standards. Nix's scanner began beeping frantically. Dr. Thane, you need to see this. Another creature is approaching. Through the jungle, undergrowth came something that looked like a cross between a butterfly and a nightmare. Its wings sparkled with rainbow patterns, beautiful enough to attract any curious observer. But Tom had read about rainbow moths in the mission briefing. They were living chemical warfare factories, capable of spraying acid that could eat through most known materials. The rainbow moth settled on a tree branch about 10 meters away, its wings slowly opening and closing. Tom could see the specialized glands along its wing edges beginning to swell as it prepared to release its defensive spray. "Everyone back away slowly," Dr. Thane ordered. "Rainbow moth acid can penetrate most environmental suit materials." But Tom was studying the creature with professional interest rather than fear. "Pretty little thing. Reminds me of the monarch butterflies back home. They used to eat poisonous milkweed plants and store the toxins in their wings to make themselves taste bad to predators. The rainbow moth launched itself into the air, circling their position while preparing to spray." Tom stood his ground, watching its flight pattern with the calm attention of someone who had dealt with hostile flying insects before. The attack came without warning. The rainbow moth dove toward Tom's head, releasing a stream of acid that sizzled through the air. Most of the spray hit his environmental suit, which began smoking immediately. But some of the acid splashed onto his exposed neck, where his suit's seal had been damaged by the earlier death spine crawler bite. Dr. Thane and Nix dove for cover, expecting to hear Tom's screams as the acid burned through his skin. Instead, they heard him grunt slightly and swat at the rainbow moth like it was a particularly annoying mosquito. "Ow, that burns a little." Tom rubbed his neck where the acid had hit. His skin was red and irritated, but it was not dissolving into smoking. Ruins as it should have been. Worse than a jellyfish sting, but not too bad. The rainbow moth seemed as confused as the death spine crawler had been earlier. It circled again, spraying more acid, but Tom just ducked slightly and continued his work cataloging samples. "This is impossible," Dr. Thane whispered, running emergency medical scans. "That acid has a pH level that should carbonize organic tissue on contact." "Yeah, we had stuff like that on Earth too," Tom said casually. "Ever run into a Portuguese man of war? Those things could put you in the hospital if you weren't careful. And don't get me started on fire ants." Over the next hour, 3 more of Theta 7's lethal inhabitants attempted to kill Tom Bradley. A thorn vine that shot poisonous barbs shredded his suit but barely scratched his skin. A gas spore fungus released a cloud of hallucinogenic toxins that made him sneeze twice. A crystal wasp that could paralyze most creatures with its sting managed to sting him on the hand, causing him to comment that it felt about like getting shocked by a car battery. Each time, Dr. Thane ran medical scans. Each time, the results showed Tom's immune system adapting and learning. His body was not just surviving these attacks, it was treating them as educational experiences. "Tom," she finally said, her voice heavy with the weight of scientific revolution, "I need to send a priority message to the Galactic Council. What we are witnessing here will change everything we understand about biological adaptation." Tom looked up from a plant that had been trying to strangle him with tentacle-like roots. "Why? I'm just doing my job. This stuff isn't really that much worse than what we dealt with back home." As he spoke, a drop of sap from an overhead branch fell onto his exposed forearm. The sap was bright green and began smoking on contact with his skin. According to Dr. Thane's database, it was concentrated enough to eat through starship hull plating. Tom glanced at the smoking sap, wiped it off with his sleeve, and continued working. Dr. Thane realized that humanity's classification as a garden, world species was not just wrong. It was dangerously, spectacularly wrong. And the implications of that error would reshape galactic civilization. The emergency session of the Galactic Council's Xenobiology Committee convened at 800 Galactic Standard Time, just 18 hours after Dr. Thane's initial report reached the capital world of New Harmony. Representatives from 43 different species filled the circular chamber, their various breathing apparatus and environmental suits creating a symphony of hums and clicks. Committee Chair Velandra, an ancient Zephyrian whose crystalline body had survived 3 centuries of galactic politics, called the session to order with a resonating chime. We are here to discuss Dr. Kira Thane's preliminary report regarding human biological capabilities. Dr. Thane, please present your findings. Dr. Thane stood at the central podium, her normally steady hands trembling slightly as she activated the holographic display. The image of Tom Bradley appeared above the assembled delegates, showing him calmly working while covered in various Theta-7 toxins that should have killed him hours ago. "Honorable delegates," she began, "everything we believed about human biology is incorrect. What we classified as weakness is actually strength beyond our comprehension." The hologram shifted to show Tom's medical readouts during his encounters with Theta-7's deadly ecosystem. Numbers and charts floating in the air told an impossible story of biological adaptation that violated every known law of evolutionary biology. This human subject was exposed to 17 different lethal biotoxins during a single day of fieldwork, Dr. Thane continued. Each exposure should have resulted in immediate death. Instead, his immune system adapted to each threat in real time, creating specific countermeasures within hours rather than generations. Delegate Krextor of the hegemony leaned forward, his massive bulk straining against his environmental platform. "You are suggesting that humans possess biological capabilities that exceed those of any known species? This seems unlikely." "I am not suggesting it," Dr. Thane replied firmly. "I am documenting it. But this discovery led me to investigate human homeworld data more carefully. What I found challenges our entire understanding of their evolutionary background." The holographic display changed to show Earth as seen from orbit. To most observers, it looked like a standard garden world, blue and green and peaceful. But Dr. Thane had learned to look deeper. Initial classification reports described Earth as a temperate garden world suitable for colonization by most council species. However, detailed analysis reveals a different picture entirely. Earth is not a garden world. It is a biological arms race that has been running for over 3 billion years. New images appeared in the hologram. Creatures that looked like they belonged on deathworlds, not garden worlds. Sharks with rows of razor teeth. Spiders that could kill with a single bite. Jellyfish trailing clouds of stinging tentacles. Plants that could blind or poison anything that touched them. The human homeworld contains an estimated 50,000 venomous species, Dr. Thane said, watching the delegates' reactions of horror and disbelief. For comparison, the most dangerous previously cataloged world, Xerion Prime, contained fewer than 300. Delegate Shannara of the Peaceful Collective spoke up, her melodic voice carrying overtones of distress. If this world was so dangerous, how did any species survive long enough to develop intelligence? That is exactly the question, Dr. Thane replied. Most worlds with high biological diversity develop along stable lines. Predators and prey reach balance. Toxic species remain isolated in specific ecological niches. But Earth appears to have undergone constant biological warfare for millions of years. Instead of specializing for specific threats, humans developed generalized resistance to everything. The hologram showed Tom Bradley again, this time displaying a detailed breakdown of his immune system in action. The complexity was staggering. Where most species had evolved specific defenses against particular threats, humans had developed an immune system that could learn and adapt to anything. Consider these examples from their own historical records, Dr. Thane continued. Humans routinely survived diseases that killed 90% of those infected. They developed resistance to toxins through gradual exposure. They learned to coexist with predators that could kill them instantly. They even consumed substances that were toxic to them in small doses for pleasure. She paused to let that sink in. They poisoned themselves recreationally and called it entertainment. The chamber erupted in sounds of shock and confusion. Delegate after delegate demanded clarification, certain that the translation systems had malfunctioned. Dr. Thane, Chair Valandra chimed urgently, are you stating that humans voluntarily consumed toxins? Alcohol, caffeine, capsaicin, nicotine? Dr. Thane listed. All of these are technically poisonous compounds that humans consumed regularly. They developed not just tolerance, but enjoyment of substances that would incapacitate most species. In the back of the chamber, military advisor Gorth of the Krellian Defense Force was taking careful notes. The implications for military cooperation were staggering. If humans could survive in environments that killed other species, the strategic applications were enormous. Dr. Thane, he rumbled in his deep voice, what are the practical applications of this discovery? We need to completely reclassify humanity's role in galactic civilization, she replied. Worlds we considered uninhabitable might be perfectly suitable for human colonization. Research stations on toxic planets could be staffed by humans where other species would require massive life support systems. Most importantly, we need to revise our understanding of their military capabilities. The chamber fell silent as delegates considered the implications. If humans could survive biological weapons that killed other species, traditional concepts of warfare might need to be reconsidered. On the holographic display, Tom Bradley continued. His work on Theta 7, apparently unbothered by an environment that the assembled delegates considered a vision of biological hell. He was examining a flower that had tried to dissolve his face 10 minutes earlier, making notes about its reproductive cycle with scientific detachment. There is more, Dr. Thane added. Analysis of human psychological profiles suggests they are not even aware of how remarkable their biological capabilities are. They consider their resistance to toxins and diseases to be normal. What we see as impossible adaptation, they see as Tuesday. Chair Valandra's crystalline form resonated with harmonics of amazement. Dr. Thane, what do you recommend as our next course of action? Complete reclassification of humanity from Category 7 Garden World species to Category 1 Apex biological adapters. Immediate revision of colonization protocols to include human-suitable worlds previously considered. Uninhabitable. And most importantly, formal recognition that we have been catastrophically wrong about human capabilities. As the session continued, word was already spreading through galactic communication networks. The Veltar Trade Union was quietly investigating mining rights to toxic worlds. The Krellian military was drafting new cooperation protocols. Research institutions across the galaxy were revising their understanding of biological limits. And on Theta 7, Tom Bradley finished cataloging the day's samples and headed back to camp, completely unaware that he had just redefined humanity's place in galactic civilization. He was thinking about dinner and hoping someone had managed to get the camp's comm system working so he could call his wife and tell her about the interesting plants he had found. Just another day at the office for the galaxy's newest apex species. Tom Bradley wiped the sweat from his forehead as he watched the sunrise paint Vex Prime's toxic clouds in shades of orange and purple. 6 months had passed since the Theta 7 incident, and his life had changed in ways he never expected. What started as a simple research mission had somehow turned him into the poster child for human biological superiority across the galaxy. The irony was not lost on him. He was just a guy who liked plants and didn't mind getting dirty. But according to the Galactic Council, he represented evidence that humanity was the most biologically resilient species ever discovered. The media attention had been overwhelming at first, until the Council decided that Vex Prime would be humanity's chance to prove their new classification wasn't just a fluke. Vex Prime made Theta 7 look like a vacation resort. The planet's atmosphere contained sulfuric acid in concentrations that could strip paint from starship hulls. The local ecosystem had evolved in an environment so hostile that every single organism produced multiple forms of deadly toxins as basic survival mechanisms. The ground itself was saturated with compounds that would dissolve most known materials within hours. Yet here he stood, breathing filtered air that would kill most galactic citizens instantly, leading a team of 12 humans in establishing the first permanent research colony on what everyone else called the Nightmare World. "Tom, you need to see this," called Dr. Lisa Park, the team's biochemist. She was examining samples near what they had nicknamed the Acid Falls, a waterfall of liquid that could etch through titanium. Like the rest of the human team, she wore only basic environmental protection instead of the full isolation suits that other species required. "What have you found?" Tom asked, walking over to where Lisa was working. His boots splashed through puddles of liquid that glowed with bioluminescent bacteria. The bacteria were trying to eat his boots, of course, but the synthetic materials were holding up reasonably well. "Remember how the Council said we were the only species that could work in this environment?" Lisa held up a sample vial containing something that looked like liquid starlight. "Well, we're not working in it. We're adapting to it. Look at these readings." Tom studied her scanner display. After 6 months on Vex Prime, the entire human team was showing biological changes that should have been impossible. Their immune systems had not just adapted to the planet's toxins, they had incorporated some of the alien biochemistry into their own biology. "We're actually processing some of these compounds for energy," Lisa explained, her voice filled with scientific excitement. "Our gut bacteria have learned to break down substances that should be lethal. It's like our bodies are treating this place as a challenging but manageable ecosystem." Tom nodded, though he wasn't entirely surprised. He had noticed that the team needed fewer nutritional supplements than expected. Their bodies were apparently learning to extract useful compounds from sources that would kill other species. His communicator chimed with an incoming message from Dr. Thane, who was now coordinating human exploration missions across dozens of previously uninhabitable worlds. Her voice carried the satisfaction of a scientist whose theories had been proven correct beyond her wildest expectations. "Tom, the results from the other human teams are remarkable. The colony on Poison Garden has successfully established agricultural systems using plants that produce neurotoxins as a defense mechanism. The mining operation on Acid Rain successfully extracted rare minerals from environments that dissolved our robotic equipment. And the research station on Fire Ice has made contact with indigenous life forms that communicate through chemical signals that would be lethal to most species." Tom smiled as he listened to the report. Humanity had gone from being considered fragile newcomers to being the go-to species for impossible missions. The Krellian Defense Force was hiring human advisors for operations in hostile environments. The Veltar Trade Union was partnering with human companies to access resources from worlds they could never approach safely. Even the peaceful Altarians were requesting human assistance with scientific research in dangerous locations. "There's more," Dr. Thane continued. "The Galactic Council has formally established the Human Extreme Environment Division. They want to offer your species exclusive colonization rights to over 300 worlds that were previously considered uninhabitable. The economic implications are staggering." Tom looked around at his team, who were working with casual efficiency in an environment that would require other species to use remote-controlled robots. Andy Chen was collecting samples from a plant that sprayed acid when disturbed. Maria Santos was setting up atmospheric monitoring equipment while standing in a cloud of spores that would cause respiratory failure in most life forms. David Kim was having a cheerful conversation with something that looked like a cross between a cactus and a landmine. "Dr. Thane," Tom replied, "I appreciate all the opportunities, but I hope the council understands that we're not doing this because we're trying to show off. We're just doing our jobs." "That's exactly what makes it so." "Remarkable!" Dr. Thane's voice carried a note of amazement that Tom had grown accustomed to hearing from alien colleagues. Other species approach hostile environments with fear and extensive preparation. Humans approach them with curiosity and basic caution. It's a completely different mindset. Tom's attention was caught by movement near the acid falls. Something large was emerging from the corrosive liquid, something that definitely hadn't been in their survey reports. It looked like a cross between a jellyfish and a living crystal, with tentacles that dripped substances that made the air around them shimmer and distort. "Dr. Thane, I'm going to have to call you back. We've got a new life form to catalog." Tom approached the creature slowly, the same way he had approached countless dangerous animals back on Earth. The key was to move with confidence but without aggression, to show that you weren't prey, but also weren't a threat. The crystal jellyfish pulsed with internal light as it studied him. Its tentacles waved in patterns that might have been communication attempts. When one of the tentacles brushed against Tom's environmental suit, it left a trail of substance that immediately began eating through the fabric. "Interesting," Tom murmured, making notes on his scanner. "Chemical communication system, probably. The acid secretion might be how they talk to each other." Behind him, he could hear Maria calling for backup scanners and David making jokes about alien diplomacy. The human team treated each new discovery as an interesting puzzle rather than a mortal threat. It was an attitude that had revolutionized galactic science. Over the following weeks, Tom's team made contact with 17 different species of what they termed extreme environment specialists, creatures that lived in acid pools, organisms that fed on radiation, life forms that existed in temperatures that would vaporize most known materials. Each contact was handled with the same calm professionalism that humans brought to everything. The breakthrough came when David figured out how to communicate with the crystal jellyfish using controlled chemical releases. The creatures, it turned out, were highly intelligent and had been trying to warn the human team about a dangerous storm system approaching their research station. "They're actually concerned about our safety," David reported to Tom with amusement. "They think we're fragile because we need those environmental suits to survive." Tom laughed at the irony. To the galactic community, humans were impossibly resilient. To the native life forms of Vex Prime, they were delicate visitors who needed artificial protection to survive in the real world. The storm that the crystal jellyfish warned them about turned out to be a weather system that would have destroyed any conventional research station. Winds carrying concentrated acids, lightning that struck with chemical payloads instead of electricity, and precipitation that consisted of liquid toxins rather than water. Tom's team rode out the storm in their reinforced shelter while monitoring the environmental readings. The storm was actually fascinating from a scientific perspective, representing weather patterns that existed nowhere else in the galaxy. "You know what's funny?" Maria said as they watched acid lightning paint the sky in impossible colors. "6 months ago, the council thought sending us here was basically a death sentence. Now they're planning to use our research to establish human colonies on planets that make this place look friendly." Tom nodded, thinking about the reports he had been reading. Human survey teams were exploring worlds with radiation levels that would kill most species instantly. Human miners were working in environments where the air itself was corrosive. Human scientists were studying phenomena that could only be observed from within lethal proximity. And none of them thought it was particularly remarkable. They were just people doing interesting work in challenging places. His communicator chimed with a priority message from the Galactic Council. Tom read it twice to make sure he understood correctly. "What is it?" Lisa asked, seeing his expression. "They want to offer humanity a permanent seat on the Galactic Council," Tom said slowly. "Full membership, with voting rights and everything. The message says our biological capabilities have made us essential partners for galactic exploration and development." The team gathered around to read the message. After 6 months of treating them like biological curiosities, the galactic community was finally recognizing humans as equals, more than equals in some ways. "So we went from being the new kids who needed protection to being the species everyone wants on their team," Andy observed. "Not bad for a bunch of Garden World primitives." Tom smiled as he looked out at Vex Prime's hostile landscape. The planet that was supposed to kill them had become a second home. The creatures that were supposed to be deadly threats had become research partners. The environment that was supposed to be uninhabitable had become the site of humanity's first major diplomatic breakthrough. "Not bad at all," he agreed, "though I still think they're making too big a deal about it. We're just doing what humans have always done." "Which is?" Maria asked. Tom watched a group of crystal jellyfish dancing in the acid falls, their tentacles weaving patterns that probably contained more information than most species could process in a lifetime. In the distance, human researchers were setting up equipment to study phenomena that existed nowhere else in the universe. "Adapting," he said simply. "We see something new, something challenging, something that might kill us if we're not careful. And we figure out how to live with it." As the storm cleared and Vex Prime's 3 suns emerged through the toxic clouds, Tom Bradley began planning the next day's research schedule. There were new species to catalog, new environments to explore, new challenges to understand and overcome. Just another day at the Office for Humanity, the galaxy's newest and most resilient explorers.